for the Trestle game. Here in the instruction note box it says, try to find the lowest cost for the bases, beams, and poles. The bases are purple and are numbered by their strength 2 to 40. The sum of its supported beams. Well, here are the bases in these purple boxes. The beams are black and are numbered by length 1 to 20. The sum of their lengths will be 100. Well, here are the two black boxes about the beams and their cost. And you see here, it says all the beams are of length 10. There's 10 of them, so they total 100. The poles are brown to gray, listed by height. Click the pole position to change your test total. Well, here are the poles, and you notice they're not numbered, they have different colors. Here you see the poles holding up the beams, and here are the bases. The bases are in purple. The marginal costs go up with the base strength, the beam length, and the pole height. You can change the cost by clicking Adjust in the red stripe. Well, I'm going to go up here. Here's the red stripe, and I'm going to click Adjust. Here it lists all the base costs. You can change them if you want. Then it lists the beam cost, and last it lists the pole cost, and you can also change the game number. This is by going to Adjust, and it says here when you click Adjust in the red stripe, you can adjust the cost of the bases, beams, and poles. The marginal cost of a unit should increase as you increase the size. Otherwise, there's no problem. In other words, if the cheapest pole was the tallest pole, that's the one you would always pick. When you click Test in the red stripe, you will see the marginal cost per unit for the bases, beams, and poles. The marginal costs have 2 decimal places. Well, let's leave Adjust by clicking it in the red stripe, and now we'll click Test. Alright, here it's showing the marginal cost for the bases, the beams, and the poles. And you'll notice that the marginal cost either stays the same or it goes up as you increase the height or the strength of it. Well, let's re-click Test so it goes back. Here's where we started, and it was going to say click on Next to go to the next instructions. So I'm going to click on Next. The topography of the ground is shown by the different colored squares. The color denotes the pole size required. This is the topography. It goes up and down, and as the topography goes down, you have to have taller poles. They're more expensive. It goes up, shorter poles, and it goes from one side to the other side. Every game has a different topography. Click on one of these squares and a pole will be placed there. Re-click and the pole will be removed. Well, alright, I'm going to put a pole here. I'm going to click on this red square. Now there's a pole there. And the cost changed. I'm going to re-click that position and the pole will go away. If there was a pole on either side of it, the pole will be removed. So if I would click next to this red pole, on this other red one, it would know that, well, you don't want 2 poles next to each other, so therefore I'll get rid of that other pole. I'm going to click the pole back again. To remove a pole, click on it, the taller the pole, the more it costs. Right here we see one purple pole here. That's really tall, and we look over here at the cost. Its cost is $220. The cost of a base is determined by the length of the two beams it supports. Well, in this case, all the beams are of length 10, so the bases here always are of strength 20. Note all the way across their 20s. The cost of a beam is determined by its length. Well, these are all 10, and if we go down here, it says it's using 10 of size 10, and each one costs $290. Well, we're going to go to next again. There's more instructions. Click the brown box to switch between test total and the lowest. Active one is blinking. Oh, it's saying that right now it's showing the test total of 7,360. That's what the trestle would cost if this is where the poles were placed. However, it says that the lowest cost that it can find is 7,017. And if I click the brown box, it's going to go to the lowest. I clicked it. Oh, now it says they're not all size 10. In fact, the first beam is 17, and the next 11, and 14, 12, 7, and 10. But they were determined by where the poles were placed. The beam has to reach to the pole and then reach to the next pole as it goes across. When the game starts, the test total is set to 9 poles. There are the 9 poles. 1 pole every 10th position. Well, let's see if we go back to the test total. We'll see that again. Every 10th position. The beginning cost is high because there was no regard for the total cost of the trestle. To lower the cost, you can add or remove poles from the test total. Click a colored square. Well, let's see what happens to the total here. It says 7360. I'm going to remove this pole. Well, now it went down to 7316. One less pole. The blue boxes show the cost of the test total and the lowest known cost. That's these blue boxes here, where we saw we have the test total and we have the lowest cost. By selecting where the poles are to be, you determine the cost of the trestle. So you can try moving these poles around. I would recommend you get rid of this purple pole because it's very expensive, and try and find another way of crossing this expanse. Well, there's more notes. I'm going to click next. Dynamic programming was used to find the lowest cost of the bases, beams, and poles. Dynamic programming simply means that small problems were solved in order to solve the large problem. In this case, what it did was it said, what if I had a pole at every one of these locations? And I started from the one side and said, well, to get to this pole at the lowest cost, what can I do? Then I go to the next pole and say at this cost, and so on and so forth. And finally, when it got out a ways, it would say, my lowest cost isn't to go back to the beginning, but to go to this other pole. That's called dynamic programming. The two white bases, one at each end, do not add to the cost, so they can carry long beams. Notice here, this white base doesn't cost you anything, but it's holding a length 20 beam. So you benefit by putting longer beams because this base doesn't cost you anything. The tan boxes Give the current game number and a way to start another game. Well, this is game number 1112, and if I click this box down here, another game will show up. There are 10,000 games. When you click for new game, that's that brown box down there. Or it said it was a tan box. Okay, the tan box down there, I'm sorry. The game number changes. Each game has a different topography. Yes, this is what's going to change. These colored squares are going to change their positions. So the required heights of the poles will change with the topography. Each game has a different topography, so the required heights of the poles will change. The required height of a pole is given by the colored square on the topography. Remember we said here this purple one is really tall. We didn't use any brown ones, but here I'm going to click and change that to a brown one. That should have reduced the cost. Well, there's still more instructions, so I'm going to click next. At the bottom of the screen are the costs for the bases, beams, and poles. We see them down here in purple, black, and the multicolored. The purple boxes have the size, quantity, and cost of each base for the test total or the lowest. Right now we're blinking test total, so that's the example it's given. So here it says there's 1 of this and 5 of this and 1 of this. That's this example here. The black boxes have the size, quantity, and cost for each beam for the test total or the lowest, depending on which is selected. The multicolored boxes have the quantity and cost for each pole for test total and lowest. See, I can go down here and click on lowest, and then these quantities will change accordingly. Click the brown box to switch between test total and lowest. Well, we saw that. There's the brown box, and I can click between the two. And the blue boxes are the test totals and the lowest totals. The current one is blinking, and here we see what the two totals are. Actually, you're supposed to try to see if you can get to this lowest total. If you can't figure out how to get there, click on here so it will go to the lowest total, and then you'll see the answer. Well, now it says I can go back, and I'll go back all the way back to the beginning. Here's where we started. Alright, also up here in the red stripe, here at the top, we can click on Program. Here is the listing for the main program of Trestle. Here it's not advanced to the top, so I'll make it go to the top. Program of Trestle, and we see up here its name is Trestle, and over here it says Program 0 is called Trestle. It says it also has 5 other sub-programs, they're called. Show the bases, builds random topography, show the pole and beam cost, show the base cost, adjust and test. And above here are these blue boxes for execute the application. That means it go back where the screen where we had been, where it runs the game. Save the application. You can save the application to any one of 20 folders, and create a new application, new subprogram, and ways of copying routines from other applications and bringing them to this one. Down at the bottom, there's the brown boxes, which have functions that will help make programs or instructions about it, about ASCII, about colors, making patterns, making notes, and so forth. That's used in programming. And down here, it says about building an app. There are routines here that will go through the building of an application, which in this case we call a game. And below that, is an application that will show you examples of the different actions that are used in this P code. These programs are written in a P code. Below that, there's a list of HTML5 P code YouTube videos. Here's a list of videos that you can watch that'll tell you about instruction lines, instruction parts, values, text, green lines, which should mark the lines that you wish to copy, how to make comments, everything you need to know to run this P code. Alright, we're going to go back and execute the application. Here we're back to the Trestle's display screen where the game is run. Down below it, there's a list of HTML5 P code apps. There's one about a bakery, blackjacks, box delivery, and all the way down here to Valley Road and so forth. These are other applications. What's nice about that is you can go to any one of them and copy a routine from it if you like to use it in yours. Alright, this is the end of the video on Trestle.